Welcome back to Reality Behind the Flight. I'm your host, DaCoda Bartles, COO of FlyGuys. Today, I have with me JP Juneau, who is our product manager. And today we're going to dive into everything product and software related. Really how it works, what it does, and how it powers everything that we do here at FlyGuys. So with that, we'll kind of jump right in with Mr. JP Juneau. Welcome.
How's it going?
Going well. This is a pretty interesting person that I've got here with me because he's been here longer than I think almost everybody in the company. Tell us a little bit about that.
One other employee, Haley, she's one of our accountants. But yeah, it's been 6 years at this point. Just made 6 in March. And you want me to take it all the way back?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the fact that you've been here as long as you have is you've been through so many different positions, even departments. So I guess you've been here the second longest, but you've definitely been through the most change.
Yeah.
And have witnessed the most evolution of anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 years of this company is a really, really long time. Last podcast, we had Whitney, who had been here for 4, and that felt like a really long time. So 6 is... Although it only sounds like 2 more years, it's quite a bit longer.
A lot happens in those 2 years or in the 6 years that I've been here. So yeah, I guess dialing it all the way back, when I first got here, I was in my final semester in college, going to school for business management, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And one of my classmates had this like really unique and interesting and weird job, hard to explain. Kind of piqued my interest, and then I also needed an internship. So, he was talking about it one day, and I ended up just asking him about it, coming, and it was actually at the old office, so before even like the office downtown.
Oh, before the Clinton office. So you're talking 3 offices ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
My first day, I guess we'll get there, but my first day was the Clinton office move-in.
Okay.
So, I was moving boxes my first day.
Wow. How many people were working at the company at that time?
I think it was, maybe 9 or 10. And then once we moved into the Clinton office, we actually got a smaller team, and then slowly started to add as we progressed and figured out what we needed. But anyways, started the internship actually in a marketing position, and my only responsibilities were to run the social media and help respond to questions, and even directing sales calls, or if the salespeople weren't available, I was taking some of those. And
wow.
I didn't even know what I was talking about back then, but obviously a lot has changed now. But after the internship lasted maybe 3 months, got my college credits for it, I started to take an interest in drones, and actually started diving into the fundamentals of data capture. And I'd always kind of had a technical background with, just cameras and more on the photography side. But, once I figured out that data actually can be used to produce 3D models, and there's method behind the madness, that's what kind of kept me around. So
gotcha.
I'd hit a point in my path where I had to... FlyGuys was taking more and more time. So after the internship, I had to make a decision to stay with FlyGuys and, start turning this into a career once I graduated. Lots of uncertainty at that time, or stick with school and get my MBA. So I ended up doing 2 semesters of the MBA program, and, both were starting to take more time and more out of me. So I made a decision: do I stick with FlyGuys or continue with the MBA? So
wow.
Here I am with no MBA, and trust in FlyGuys that we're going to pull through.
So were you presented, I guess, with a more of a formal full-time position, or what was it like at the end of the internship? Describe to us a little bit that fork in the road and what led you to the decision that you made.
Well, one of the big changes was kind of the operational leadership at the time. They had gotten rid of that guy, so it was me and another employee, Nick Boone, that kind of came in, and we were the operations team. The 2 of us were, sourcing every single mission, talking to pilots, coordinating, figuring out how to fly, how to capture.
Wearing many hats.
Exactly. So, at a certain point, it was just me and Nick, and then we hired on a couple more mission coordinators and then a couple more mission coordinators. So we started to scale out that team. And then I ended up sticking in that operations role for maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years at that point. And my primary role was like sourcing pilots and helping kind of develop the pilot network on top of mission coordinating. So
Gotcha.
that was
Okay.
about the time where like you came in, kind of took over the ops lead role, and yeah, we were making lots of like team changes and
I remember.
actually
Yeah.
building processes to what we were doing, and less just whatever works mentality. Um, and then yeah,
Yeah, I remember that. I remember coming in, and that's just kind of the natural evolution of really any startup. You've got several people, as many as you can, just doing everything they possibly can just to keep advancing things the next day. And then the team grows. You get a minute to kind of pause and think about how do we standardize and formalize process and kind of mature the group to the next level. And then you just kind of rinse and repeat over
yeah,
and over. And we've done that several times. We do it a couple times a year is what it
even
feels
today,
like. So,
yeah,
yeah. And today you now are serving as product manager. So
yeah,
spend a lot of time doing a little bit of everything, or a lot of bit of everything maybe.
yeah,
Um, Heavily involved in operations for quite some time, several
yep,
years. Really led several different initiatives with pilot sourcing, and um, as the company evolved off of the what we call the 1.0 software side. So, for those of you who aren't totally familiar, when we're talking about the product side of things, what we're really talking about is FlyGuys proprietary software, and the software there really is our mission management platform.
yep,
As well as the app and how you kind of interface with that from either the demand side as a customer or the supply side as a pilot. So, as the product manager, I mean, give us a little sample. What's a day in the life of JP now that you've got this new type of role that's just not something I think you had a whole lot of experience in before, but are
yeah.
crushing it now?
Yeah, and maybe just to like complete the timeline, is I transitioned into this role like 2 years ago, almost 2 years at this point, and with a lot of that like operational knowledge or just knowledge on how the business work. That's why I'm in this role. That's I think the value that I'm bringing in this role is understanding what the operations team or the pilots or customers are dealing with, and honestly running into problems, and then helping solution those problems, helping highlight the problems and solution the problems. So most of my day, honestly, is responding to when the platform is not working. Right around the time I transitioned, like you mentioned, we were on that 1.0 and then transitioned into 2.0. So that's a whole new software that we started developing.
Mhm.
And when you transition, you're not going to start with the full product. So what we do is we develop small pieces of the platform in sprints. So in releases. So in every quarter, we have a big release with, a bundle of new features and new gadgets and tools and, exciting things for internal team and pilots and customers. So when we released, it was kind of the bare bones. It was like, what do we need to run the business at that time?
Right.
And then even as we progress 2 years later, I think we're just hitting that point where we have all the fundamentals, we have all the required things that the platform needs, and then now we're just making improvements to it. So we're, spending a little bit more time on adding capabilities or further developing things that already exist.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it'd be interesting for a moment, maybe just to kind of back out and
Yeah.
review what it is, that the product really does and your involvement. So
Yeah.
it's an obvious fit that you would be involved in the product team because of your deep operational knowledge and just your involvement really since the beginning of the company. I mean, being involved in making phone calls to pilots, putting out fires in the middle of the night, early morning, weekends, I'm sure all kinds of craziness.
Yeah.
Just very intimately familiar with the inner workings of what it takes to make it happen. And I'm sure in the really early days, I mean, managing missions could have been as simple as having to deal with spreadsheets or the Google suite of
It's a
sheets and
lot of spreadsheets
a
in
lot
the
of that
past.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff, right? And then moving into the first iteration of software, what we call inside the house is 1.0 was the
Yeah.
first pass at the mission management software,
Yeah.
and it was better than spreadsheets. It was definitely the next evolution of what was needed, and I think the company learned a lot from that. But we also learned a lot about what we knew it couldn't do.
Yeah.
So it was imperative for the company to really grow and become what we're planning for it to become. That this 2.0 software came out. This is about the time the CEO stepped in, Joe Stow, and the whole product team really was developed. And it's quite a team that you've got with you. So maybe you could give us a little bit about kind of the timeline of when 2.0 kicked off and sort of the vision of what that's going to do, both for the pilots, for the internal, operations folks and employees here in the company.
Yeah, and I'll try not to get too technical. But we, the way we work with our engineering team is like, we have a couple product members in-house, and then we have developers. So for those that don't know software development, that's kind of where myself and Kevin and Jonathan sit as kind of the go-between of the business, which is, our FlyGuys team, pilots and customers, and the development team. So we're explaining problems in business terms, and then the engineering team is helping solution and say, okay, how are we going to fix this problem? What are we going to develop within our platform to reduce the friction or remove the issue?
Right.
So, earlier you asked, what is our platform? What do we actually develop? To give a high level, it's a mission management tool. Mm-hmm. So every single request that comes through from a customer is a mission. So a mission is like a unique location with specific capture requirements, specific pilot that's going to be assigned, and all of those missions, thousands of missions, flow through this system. And then this system has different tools that allow our operations team and, pilot experience team and QA team, and even like down to accounting, everybody is in this platform daily to manage the business. So think of it as like it's replacing the Google Sheets that we used to have to use. And Google Sheets can be very unorganized, and you don't have all the like controls and restrictions that are built into like a custom product, which is what we have. So having this product and kind of the whole vision and purpose behind this product is to have a frictionless experience for the customer, to where they put the requests in, and a few days later they get their data.
Yeah.
So coming back to your question, like what is the vision for the platform? What is the purpose behind it? Ultimately it's, like I said, frictionless with white glove. So that with white glove is the very hard part of our business, to where, we don't want all of these requests to just be sent out into the ether and any pilot can take it. And, the customers don't know what they're going to get back. We have controls in place. We have, a team behind the process to help manage it and to step in when deviations occur.
Yeah.
So again, that's the vision. We're kind of hitting that cusp of everything that we've needed to develop has been done, and now we're improving it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I remember, this is a little over 3 years ago now, but we were doing a couple hundred missions a month. We're fast forward to today, we're doing several thousand missions a month.
Yeah.
So at the most basic level, the product is absolutely necessary just to enable our folks to do what we do, to succeed at that many missions, at that level of volume, at that scale across, the entire, mostly North America right now. I think another thing that's really interesting is the perspective of the pilots, right? So kind of speaking about your white glove comment, that's something that we take very seriously. And, we want to have a warm transaction. We want to have some involvement with the pilots. And I feel like something that we're really trying to do or making a point of is involving the pilots in some of these new features and releases. What is it that they're looking for that also helps them? Because we have our internal folks inside of operations that are, handling the mission all the way through to QA/QC.
Yep.
But what is it that the pilots need that helps them, be more successful in the field? So we're always looking to encourage pilots to reach out. I'm sure several of you guys have heard from JP or seen a newsletter or an email or something at some point in time. So for some of you guys, if you've never put a face to the name, here he is. Yeah, so I think it's really interesting just to highlight why we need it and what we ultimately want to do with it. So another goal of the company, a conscious decision that we made was, a few hundred missions. Now we're looking at a few thousand, but a path to 1 million missions is what we've put out there a while back. I think it was, marketing put together these really cool graphics and things like that. I know it's my personal background, trying to manifest it every day on my computer, but 1 million missions. I mean, you can imagine that the basic nuts and bolts of being able to just handle each individual mission has to be smooth. Like you're talking about removing friction and just having it be a little bit more effortless. But at the same time, we want to introduce some friction, and that's that white glove where we're involved. When a pilot has an issue, they're able to reach out to a person, a mission coordinator, or even somebody from the product team, yourself or Jonathan Slisher, or somebody else from the team. Could you walk us through a little bit of that? How a pilot could maybe reach out, or what would be the best way for you could encourage somebody to maybe provide some feedback outside of anything that we do from the newsletter or something like that?
Yeah, I'm sure this will spark some emails, but I would, for now, send an email to support@flyguys.com. That's going to go to, the product team. If you have like major suggestions or, major friction points, we get a lot of our feedback, honestly, just from what we're hearing from mission coordinators, because the mission coordinators deal with the pilots the most. Honestly, I think that's one thing I miss about being on the product team nowadays is, back in the day when I was sourcing and running missions, I had pilots all over the United States that I had honestly developed personal relationships with, and we would not be where we're at without, most of those pilots.
Amen.
So, it's always a little shot in the butt, a little excitement when I hear, certain names like Craig and Dwayne, and miss a lot in that. But I hear pilots that I used to use and hear that they're still being used. And I know that okay, that mission coordinator's in good hands. I know that pilot's going to knock it out.
Yeah.
So nowadays I don't talk to pilots as much. But feedback is kind of taken from mission coordinators' experiences. So to give you a hard example, one of the big friction points right now is, like you're saying, scaling up from 100 missions a month to 1,000 missions a month for one mission coordinator. Any little deviation, any little change or request requires manual input. Mm-hmm. So right now we're having a lot of issues or just friction with reschedules. So something as simple as a date change, we don't want the pilot to, have full autonomy on whatever date they want. For every single request, customers, they say, we need it flown within this time frame. So, we have to then, from the product perspective, take that whole scenario, break it down into all the possible use cases, and make sure all of them are covered to control what dates are available for pilots to pick when they reschedule. So that's something that should be coming soon, is just allowing the pilots to change the dates so that they don't have to send a message to the mission coordinator that requires the mission coordinator to go in and update the date for the pilot. So
gotcha.
Yeah, something as simple as that. As soon as you start talking volume, as soon as you start talking scale, it becomes an issue.
Yeah. I've got one other thing I wanted to bring up that's, I think, just a fun point to make, because this just happened recently. So the total product team is quite large now at this point. I think where are we at as far as people roundabout?
We have, I don't know, maybe 30 developers. It's a couple different teams, as well as some, product.
Right. So
members.
we have a handful of folks in the office here in headquarters in Lafayette, Louisiana. A couple other folks that are, inside the U.S., a few that are in Louisiana, but we've also got some FlyGuys team that are in Colombia, which is really interesting. And we actually had a few of them here just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that was great.
Which was a lot of fun. Just a really interesting moment to kind of collaborate on cultures. So South Louisiana, we're really big on our food, seafood specifically. So it was that time of year and that season where we were able to have a big crawfish boil and invite them over, and even had some Cajun dance lessons. And it was a beautiful day in the park. And
some of them, that was my first time meeting them in 3 years of working with them.
Yeah, and I know you guys in product are working remote a lot. Well, you guys are having to meet on Teams meetings or Google Meets or whatever it is, and so getting together in person is a really nice way to just.
It was great.
Yeah,
good dynamic. Good. I feel like it was a little spark.
Yeah.
Just for the team, and I think it also just helped them understand. And we did a lot of like observation sessions where they were watching the mission coordinators or the QA team on how they're doing what they're doing. And, rather than me having to bundle it up and put a bow on it and explain, hey, here's the problem and all the scenarios, they got to experience it firsthand and say like, oh, yeah, now you don't have to over explain it now. I completely understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's at some point in time, I guess we'll have to include some sort of video clip or something of inside of our headquarter office. So the in Lafayette at HQ product team and the operations team, we all share one side of the office, which is a unique space with lots of monitors and metrics and details and all kinds of things flying around. It's one giant open room, and it can be loud,
rowdy,
and a lot of fun sometimes, but. But anyway, so it's nice that having been in operations and now in product, we're all still kind of in the same room collaborating together and working together on a lot of things. Okay. Well, what about one of the things I wanted to talk about too was the roadmap.
Yes.
Where we've talked a little bit about where we've come from, and maybe now we could kind of pause and look at what is ahead. So for some of the folks out there, when we talk about the product roadmap, it's basically what is our plan of how we're going to get from where we are today to the next, several evolutions of where we're trying to go. So it's essentially what it sounds like. It's a roadmap. We're going to go from here to there and then there to here and so on and so forth. And one of the things that we do internally in the company is have several meetings to talk about what's important. In that, we're getting feedback from the pilot community, from the customer community, internally from ops, sales, and all kinds of other folks. What are you guys working on right now that you think maybe the pilots would be really excited about in some of these next releases and things like that?
Yeah, just in general with the roadmap, it changes. And in an industry that it's not something that's been around for years, like it's getting better. But I still have to explain what we do and how we do it, just in my day-to-day to, the average person that's walking down the street. They don't understand data capture. So with that roadmap, like in an industry that's constantly changing, priorities are shifting. And, as these big customers come up or new use cases come up, that definitely drives what goes into the roadmap. So some of the top items right now that's kind of new development is we're starting to develop with AI. So that's using, agentic AI and starting to develop agents within our platform that basically act as mission coordinator assistants or finance assistants or sales assistants, whatever role we need that AI agent to take on. We can explain, hey, here are the problems we need to look out for, and these are, reminders we need to send out, or scenarios that need to be highlighted, or update the customer, or those kinds of things. So that's a big one. It's a completely different way to develop. So it's very nice seeing the team like adapt to that and learn what goes into developing AI. It's kind of a hump that we're on the downslope on. We're figuring it out and we're about to ramp up. And then, some of the other topics may be automation. So certain steps in the process, this kind of goes hand in hand with AI, but being able to automate things like maybe the more cookie cutter types of missions or things that we've done thousands of times, those flow through without any friction. completely frictionless. But some of the missions that might need more attention or need more attention from mission coordinators or like specific pilots, that's what our team spends time on. And that's going to be what allows us to scale. Maybe a third topic I can leave with you is like just improving the pilot and customer experience overall. Like I mentioned, we spent a lot of time on building the bones of what the operations team needed to keep the business running and keep the business afloat. And now we're hitting that hump where we can start spending a little bit more time on, better UI and, actual tools for pilots and things like that. So it's starting kind of that new path of, putting more power in the pilot's hands, putting more power in the customer's hands to be within our platform and less just of a tool to upload and download data.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Are there any particular features you've heard from pilots that we're missing today that they're excited about, that we're working on? Maybe it's not going to be the next release, but it's coming. Is there anything you're particularly excited about that the pilots are going to get some value from?
Yes. I think once we are able to get to this point, it'll be very exciting. So we want to have an interface that is, a business management tool for DSPs. So I would not expect that this year, but that's something that's, in the vision, in the roadmap is, as pilots are out there capturing data for more than just FlyGuys, FlyGuys becomes a management tool for them to run their business.
Right. And so what JP's saying here is, we have at this present moment, we're somewhere in the ballpark of, I think, just north of 20,000 107 licensed pilots that are signed up on the platform. When he's talking about DSPs or drone service providers, that's a term that we often hear a lot in the industry, but I think it's sort of loosely used because technically one individual with an LLC is a DSP, and so is, one individual who has 25 of his buddies working for him as contractors, whether they're W-2s or 1099s, either way. But when we talk about DSPs here and now, we're talking specifically about smaller businesses, right? Like, we have a lot of different people that we work with that it's very beneficial if we've got a massive portfolio that's going to go to any one particular city and there's, tens or even hundreds of sites to go capture. If we can work directly with a DSP, that sort of cuts out a little bit of the sourcing and there can be some efficiencies there.
Yep.
But I know there's some efficiencies we can create for those folks within the product itself. So
Yep.
Yeah.
So just, providing tools for them to manage high volume of missions. So ultimately our goal at FlyGuys is just like put more work out there into the market for pilots to capture.
And I know some of the things that we're working on there too that I think they'll be excited about, which is always painful for folks kind of running their own group, is dealing with collections and sending out invoices. That's something that I think we've gotten down really pretty good now, and to be able to help the individuals and the DSPs with that, just to be able to get paid sooner. That's a big thing that I know we take very seriously, wanting to get our pilots paid as fast as we possibly can, so they're not waiting on net 30, net 60, or beyond. Terms which are difficult to run a small business on.
Yeah.
All right, JP. So we've talked a lot about the pilots and really the pilot's experience with the product, but the product is designed really for both sides of the marketplace, right? The supply and the demand side. So from the customer perspective, how are you thinking about the customers on the product team and their experience with the product?
Yeah. And that's a hard one to balance because we've talked about our internal team, the FlyGuys team, pilots, and customers. So, backtracking on the roadmap and that whole conversation, we have to consider all of that and all of those different experiences and how do they work together. And maybe a platform training 101, we have 3 different portals and a mobile app for the pilots that operations, pilots, and customers all interact with. And it's all part of the FlyGuys product, the FlyGuys platform, and they're all speaking together. They're all, looking at the same data. So on the customer end, something that we developed, kind of one of the big things last year was an API. So, for non-technical listeners, it's more, a bridge or a connection between the FlyGuys platform and their own platform. So some of our customers are data analytics partners, and this API allows us to connect their system to our system. So the API is in between updating dates, transferring data, communicating notes, those types of things. That way, for the customer's experience, they continue working in their platform. They continue working in software that they're used to, that they've spent time developing, and it allows FlyGuys to continue working in ours. And there's a project that happens that we connect the two.
Gotcha. Yeah, so some of those critical details that would otherwise take quite a bit of time and introduce a lot of manual friction from a person, it's automating that, and just those two systems being able to speak to each other just expedites things, especially if we're going to ingest hundreds or potentially thousands of missions at a time, right?
Correct. Yeah, and most of the customers that we have set up with that API, they're high volume. They're they've been customers. Actually, some have not been customers for too long, but it doesn't take long to set this API integration up. And then once it's set up, the key factor there is the high volume.
Right.
So rather than lots of manual mission creation and pilot sourcing and scheduling updates and communication, we hear a lot of our customers that are coming to us, they're used to Google Sheets or Slack or, some communication tool that's outside the platform. And it just leads to a lot of miscommunication and trouble keeping each other updated. So we've seen partners that have this API. It's a lot more streamlined. It's a lot more effective to manage the businesses together and grow as partners.
Yeah. And the goal there from the customer side really is just to make their life easier. Once you have an experience working with FlyGuys, it's a positive experience. You're feeling like you're getting a lot of value out of the data. Now you just want to repeat it and scale it, through the roof. That's what that does. That makes your life a whole lot easier, just kind of monitor things. So at this point, from the customer perspective, what would you say is really working very, very well that you're getting a lot of positive feedback on?
API integration.
And maybe what's not working well too, right? Like it's interesting to know kind of where we're at and how we're working on this.
That's a good topic. So I just kind of talked about like the big dogs, the big customers that have their own development team and their own platform and
speak this language like a second language easily.
But we also have like construction companies that have a high volume, but they don't have their own tool or platform. Maybe they completely operate off of Google Sheets. So, or another tool that's not their proprietary software that doesn't allow for API integration. So that's kind of I don't want to say a pain point right now, but one of the things that we need to start reviewing is the customer experience of that, like we'll call it mid-level customer, where it's not thousands of missions a month. It's just 30 to 100 missions, even 20 missions, like can be cumbersome to manage. And our current customer portal, it's okay. You can go in, you can get status updates, but there's often a lot of like additional communication that has to happen either with phone calls or emails or, messages outside of the platform. So maybe to give you a direct answer is focusing on that middle ground and focusing on just like improving the small to medium customer level experience within the customer portal.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know one thing we get requests on from customers oftentimes is a summary dashboard, to say like, I would rather not have to call or email or text or whatever form of communication. I just need to understand what's going on with these 100 jobs or these 10 jobs or whatever. Maybe you're dealing with a project manager who's overseeing, a dozen different projects across different states. And before they may have had to call a dozen different people to kind of get some answers, but just a landing page, a dashboard that simply says this job is in this current status and so on and so forth. and they could just check it daily, and it just takes minutes. I know we're working on that, and we've been talking about that one
And
for a while.
I mean, that's actually a good use case for the AI that we were talking about. Is, I gave some internal examples, but potentially opening up that kind of helper agent style AI agent to customers to say, hey, I need an update on the past 2 weeks. And then AI agent goes in, it gets all the details for you and says, hey, FlyGuys completed 3 data captures, 4 of them are planned. Here are the dates that they're planned for. And it just gives like an AI readout.
Yeah, and one thing to kind of point out for some of the pilots in the network too is just there's a lot that has to happen to have the product really working the way it needs to work so that the customer experience can be as simple and as comfortable as possible so that they can ultimately just send more missions this way. Like we are seeing a massive amount of growth in the AI software type customers that we're serving. And in order for them to send more missions our way, we've got to have our system and their system working cohesively and with as little friction as possible. And ultimately what that means is more work, more missions, more opportunities for the network. So the pilot network probably doesn't hear a whole lot about this kind of side of things, but it is a huge priority so that we can ultimately create more opportunities for the network. So in the evolution from a little bit of all things operations into product and serving as a product manager, how long have you been product manager now? It's been a
About
little
2
while.
years now.
Yeah. Okay. So about 2 years now, and working in this on the software side as a product manager, do you see yourself, still very excited about that world and maybe even potentially just, as a career being involved on the technology side? That's not something I think you were thinking about in school.
No. Yeah, I ended up getting into the product realm just because I understood the business and um, speaking to some other product managers along my path, they explain it as, product managers usually either come from the business side and learn a little bit more about the tech and what goes into software development, or they come from the tech side and really understand how to write code and um, everything that goes into software, but then they have to learn the business. So being a product manager, you kind of take one of those two paths. So right now I'm, on the understanding the business going into the software side. Um, as of right now, I think I'm learning how to do that. I'm learning how to improve what I'm doing on a daily basis. So I don't ever see myself writing code. I don't ever see myself actually going in and developing, but a lot of the skills that I think I bring to the team are more um, even just project management and timeline tracking and um, action driven decisions, because we'll get into very dreaming conversations,
Mhm.
and that's definitely needed. We need to think big, think visionary, but at some point you got to start getting stuff on paper.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of I think the value that I bring to at least the Fly Guys product team is um, starting to drive some action from those dreaming level conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember man, it doesn't feel like it was 2 years ago, but I remember even having a conversation, you and I, one-on-one, you were considering, the shift. It was an obvious choice, for the leadership of the company to have somebody with your background and experience on the ops side really helping drive the product team. Because our product team is great, but without some direct operational input
Yeah.
to say, hey, this is what we need to focus on, and this is maybe not so important yet, and we'll adjust the roadmap accordingly. Um, I felt like that was an exciting choice for you to make, and you made it, and here
Yep.
we are 2 years later, and I think everybody's very happy with the
Yep.
outcome of that, and what is still yet to come is
Yeah.
exciting to think about.
And Jonathan as well. A lot of the
Right.
pilots know Jonathan Schlischer. He kind of had a similar path. I think he makes like 4 years. I don't know. He's going to get mad at me, but he's been here for a minute, and he kind of took that same path as, we hired him on as one of the early mission coordinators. And he's also had to learn, he had a little bit of that in his background,
Mhm.
the product development side and sprints and yeah, roll out to the company. He was working oil field before that.
All right, JP. So when we're talking about pilots, we have to remember oftentimes that people in the office are also pilots, and we have some of our own experiences to share. You've been here a long time. Can you share some of those initial piloting experiences you had with the company? Just tell us a little bit about, what your experience was like.
So yeah, I have my Part 107. I haven't flown as much recently. Nowadays, I just fly my Mavic Mini recreationally. But back in the day, I think one of the big pilot experiences was we didn't have a Phantom 4 Pro when it came out. So FlyGuys, we bought a drone, which was really me just buying a drone and using it for FlyGuys. Someone had to do it. So I bought a drone, started learning about data capture. So earlier in the career, more when I was in operations, I was out there capturing solar sites, construction sites, cell towers. We actually had a project here in Lafayette that before work on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would go and capture the progress monitoring of the construction site. Yeah, I think it's important, and it's taught me a lot, especially as I've transitioned into this product role of what a pilot actually experiences out in the field. And, some of those unexpected things that come up, like I worked cell towers, and there's all kinds of surprises in that industry. And, you had to think on your feet. You had to think, it wasn't as simple as when are you flying? You had to consider weather. You had to consider site restrictions. You had to consider, is this a public place, a private place? Where's the access point? What are the gate codes? So, I think at kind of what you were saying at FlyGuys, most of the team is Part 107 verified. And I think the goal is to get everybody Part 107 verified, but most have experience out in the field capturing data as well as mission coordination. Mm-hmm. So, having that little bit of understanding helps when pilots call and helps when pilots have issues in the field or, hey, what do we do?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a unique perspective, both as a pilot yourself, communicating with the pilots from the network.
Yeah.
I know you and the network, everybody's got a cell tower story for the most part.
Yeah.
Those are always fun ones. JP, as fast as things are moving, as quickly as the product team is iterating and following this roadmap, things don't always go according to plan. Yeah. I think we all know that. Give us a little insight when, some of what happens for all of us is we're growing and then we kind of break something, we got to fix it, and then we grow to the next level. What's that like for you guys when you just run into a wall? Give us a example of one of those recently.
Yeah, every day is exciting. Some are more exciting than others. But hitting that breaking point, whenever it happens, all eyes turn to product. All eyes turn to, hey, this is broken. Yeah. We need to fix it right now.
Hurry up and fix it.
Yeah. So it's, being in the office, especially people are relying on that communication and they need to know what's happening. And when it happens, we have, production support team that's they're dedicated to watching resources and not to get too technical, but scaling up or scaling down different microservices that we have to kind of help with that fluctuation. And, our role, so me and John are taking that information of what we're doing and trying to communicate that back to pilots and mission coordinators and customers. So I definitely understand, whenever the platform is not working as expected, I'm just as frustrated and aggravated as the people that are using it. It sometimes it takes a second to figure out what we're going to do versus a knee-jerk reaction of, oh, well, let's just do this.
Right.
Sometimes to actually get to the root of that issue, to find how to fix it versus just put a Band-Aid on it, takes a little bit of time.
JP, really appreciate you joining us today.
Yep.
And really breaking down the product for us so that we can kind of get a better understanding. If you're a pilot, a customer listening out there, we're developing this as quickly as we can, as efficiently as we can, with your input. So please reach out. JP mentioned the email. One more time.
Support@flyguys.com.
Support@flyguys.com. Reach out to your mission coordinators. Just stay plugged in with us. We need you guys' input on this. and we take it very seriously, and it's a huge help. So once again, thanks, JP.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
For joining us on another episode of Reality Behind the Flights. We'll see you guys on the next one.